Oh, right. Okay. So once again, welcome to the program. Again, it's a pilot program. It's an experimental program. We want to see how it goes, inshallah ta'ala. And what we want is we want to see more of these kind of programs. So we're going to start with once a month conversation. This is meant to be, we called it chai talk. you know, it was inspired by some of these conversations we were having in Ramadan every night. Some brothers would bring chai, and we would be standing outside having different conversations about some of the affairs or some of the concerns and some of the issues our community members, our communities are facing or dealing with. Different conversations. You know how these conversations go. So we thought, why not bring it to the stage, right? Have guest speakers come together, engage the audience, have a community conversation around some of these issues that concern us, right? So tonight, I suggest that we follow up on what, last week Sheikh Yasir Fazaga gave a workshop or a seminar about how to talk to our children. And a lot of it has to do with really understanding the plight and the state of our youth, the state of the Muslim youth in North America. And the challenges facing us as parents, communities, and even as concerned members of the community, especially those of us who deal with the youth, inshallah ta'ala. Tonight I'm joined here with our dear brother Malik Shah and Sheikh Anwar and or Sheikh Yasir may join us as well, inshallah ta'ala. So again, this is a casual conversation. You're supposed to have this conversation or listen to us and join us while you are enjoying your tea, but not while you're having side conversations. We can't have multiple chai talks. So let's, inshallah ta'ala, try to stay focused on this program. Welcome, Ustad Malik, how are you?
No, this is nice.
Alhamdulillah.
Oh,
I think your mic is not on. It's right behind you. You have it?
I know I'm in one.
It's
I
right.
told you.
Yes, there you go.
All right, let's see.
Okay, there you go. No.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Okay, so it's gonna be conscious. All right, we'll try that one more time. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Okay, so thank you.
So where do we start? Let me ask you a question. I've known Brother Malik as a teacher, social studies teacher at Pleasant View School. And you deal with youth every single day, right? And the subject matter that you teach, social studies, you interact with the youth at a different level with our children. The first concern that I personally have, right, is the fact that I feel the changes, the social changes and the cultural changes that are happening so fast, so much so that we can't keep up with it. Like as a parent, if I have a child, if I have two children, if I have children who are 5 years apart, then culturally they're different, right? So can you just shed some light on this? I mean, you've taught at PVS for how long?
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
I think something like that.
So
Yeah.
do you see any difference between the older and the younger?
No, okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam, Rasulullah. America's changing. It's a really interesting time to be an American. Because America's changing, but it's not. It's changing socially, partially because in the 80s and the early 90s, the Christian coalition, they gave up the culture war. And the culture war is what happens in the streets. And when they gave it up, religious communities pretty much decided that we were not going to focus on social issues. So even as a community, if I was to ask you a question, or a couple questions. First question, how long did it take for Islam to become the dominant religion in Egypt? Any Egyptians here? Somebody, somewhere else. Our brother in the building. Lebanon, right? Is Islam the dominant religion in Lebanon? Why not?
Well, that depends on your definition of what's dominant.
Yes.
Thank you. Nobody ever thinks about who's the first person? Who's the person in your lineage who took Shahada? You know who he was? Anybody ever think about that person? The person who took Shahada in your lineage. Your ancestor. Your ancestor who took Shahada. Who was it? Thank you. Anybody else know who that person was? You know who he was? You know what he went through? You know what his struggle was? How did he learn about Islam? Sister Angie, who was that person? Okay. Islam's changed, but it hasn't. Who was the person in your what ancestor was the person who took Shahada?
Ali ibn Abi Talib, I don't know.
Right? And for you, if you've been Muslim for generations, you may say, man, why would you? I don't think about that. But there was somebody who decided to change your family from then into the day of judgment. Mm-hmm. You're sitting with people who've made that decision. I made that decision. Sister Angie made that decision. This brother made that decision. You know what that gives us? A mission. You know what I see kids don't have? A mission. Mm-hmm. Islam has always been mission oriented. Young people have always been mission oriented. When you're young, you believe you can change the world. You jump on causes like that. You remember being 19, 20 years old? What cause was you on?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of. I mean, it was different times, different focus. I'm totally with you, but I'm afraid that we may be too judgmental. We may think that. You know what I'm saying? I'm afraid that we may be thinking that, okay, 17 and 18-year-old youth that we have right now don't really have a mission. They don't have, but they may think otherwise.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
No. They have a mission.
The thing, you guys have no idea what we're going through.
I talk with young people. Young people have a mission. You know who haven't given them one? Who are they looking to give them a mission?
Anyone here?
Who do they want to get their mission from?
Any 16-year-old here want to, inshallah, answer that question?
Who gave you your mission?
I mean, different inspirational figures in my life.
Family?
My father was definitely inspirational.
Okay.
One of my mentors was a great source of inspiration.
Religious community?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the reason I asked how long did it take Islam to become the dominant religion in Egypt, meaning those people were on a mission. It took over 1,000 years.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Meaning they had a mission. What I see with young people is they're getting their mission from the dominant culture. I don't blame them for that if we're not going to give them a mission. Getting good grades is not enough for a human being. It's not a big enough why. It's a small why. It's a good why as a family. But it's not a big enough why because it becomes very easy. Anybody know the leading time for heart attacks in America?
Leading what?
The leading time for heart attacks in the United States of America.
I don't know. Yeah.
Monday morning. Between about 6 and 8 a.m. Why? They hate what they do. How did they fall into work that they hated to do? They hate to do. How did they fall into that? American culture's fine, man. I love fried chicken. I love basketball. That's American culture. Like 4th of July is coming up. I have good memories on 4th of July. I don't blame. We got to stop cursing the darkness. Well, yeah, I get it. This idea of cursing, it's not American culture. I love American culture. If you've immigrated to America, there was something about America that you liked. And if you're still here, if you're indigenous to America, it's something about America you like that's keeping you here. We don't curse the darkness, shine a light. Shine the light of the Prophet, ﷺ. But the difference is, people fall into work they don't like because they're not intentional.
Yeah.
Are we intentional with our kids in giving them a mission? Or do we just curse the missions they pick up? Oh, that's stupid. Well, how could you?
I think that's
LGBTQ.
I think that's very deep for some of us, But let's go back to the issue of, okay, just understanding where they're at. Like, what if I was to say, what is really the state or the plight of our youth? Because, when I ask that some of the young, let's say, mentors or young professionals who are born and raised here, second generation, third generation, and I ask them about specifically middle schoolers and high schoolers and even early college, they're like, Sheikh, we can't even relate to that. It's a different culture. It's different times now, right? It's no longer the same. I'm like, if you can't relate to them, or if you're having issues, right, communicating or getting, really connecting with them, what am I supposed to say, So it looks like one of the biggest challenges is that this rapid change that is happening socially, right? Every 5 years,
True. No. I mean, think about this. I mean, these.
Yeah.
Right? How has this changed your life?
I know, yeah.
Right? Anybody ever leave this at home? How do you feel? When you leave it at home, how do you feel? Who's turned around and went home and got this? We might have done that?
I almost missed my flight because I forgot my phone and I had to go and pick it up. I forgot it halfway. I mean, it has everything.
And you weren't raised with it.
No, I wasn't raised with it.
So imagine being, any of you ever in the store and you see like a baby doing like this?
Yeah.
In the stroller.
My kids know some features that I personally don't know. I know people who actually work for Apple and they work for Google. Their children have better understanding of these devices and the features in these devices than they do.
No doubt.
Yeah. So that is quite interesting, but but it looks like, the other day I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues and he said, we're in a bubble. Our kids, especially immigrant kids, right, are in a bubble, right? Kids that go to Islamic school are in a bubble. And then the real world is different, So what is there a truth to that statement?
Anybody feel like your child's in a bubble? Y'all gonna have to participate. We're not sitting up here. We're not doing.
This is supposed to be.
He invited me.
It's one of two things. If you're not part of the conversation, that means you don't like your chai.
Yeah.
Or you don't like us.
Who feels like your child's in a bubble? Nobody? Alhamdulillah.
What? What's the definition of a bubble? Right?
All right.
Do you feel? Do we understand that really? I mean, the reality of some of our children is different from the reality of the average kid in America. That's number one. Number two, that many of our children may not, or they're not really prepared for the so-called real world.
What does that mean?
Okay, here's from the studies that I'm reading right now. I feel like a lot of Muslim kids, Muslim youth, once they go, especially when they go to college, right? Yeah. They get challenged. They're spiritually challenged, socially and culturally challenged to the point where not only are they in shock, but they're really most of their beliefs are really challenged, and their faith is shaken, and we lose many of them.
Okay.
Especially
can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Can we be honest and say some colleges are too much for some kids?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Berkeley.
Can we say that? Berkeley may be a bit much.
Oh, man.
Do we have one here locally that may be too much for some kids?
I don't know them that well, but.
What do you mean by too much for some kids?
Okay, so I have 5 children. I don't know, and most, alhamdulillah, most Muslims have multiple kids, right? You recognize that some of your kids are stronger in certain things than others are. So some kids you don't have to remind to pray. Well, some kids, like, hey, did you pray? Right? So not everybody can handle. I call college, I'm not anti-college. I've taught in college. I call college secular church because it's pure secularism. Now, and if you don't prepare your child for secularism, you're kind of setting them up. Not every child can combat that. I've taught many of students some arguments they can't handle, particularly when, oh, this is better for me? Thank you. I have 5 kids, so I don't usually use microphones.
That's his water.
Hey, man,
No, you just took his water.
Oh, he's saying I don't need anything to drink. Okay, so so I'm sorry. I don't know if I answered the question. Somebody had the question. Who? Because I want to make sure I'm looking at the person.
Yeah. I think
who had
there's
the
a
question?
concern. There's a concern. What's wrong with college?
No, so yeah, so part of this is, again, I'm not attacking college. I'm saying we have to be honest that some of our kids may not be spiritually mature or capable of handling some environments.
I mean,
They're just not. Can I give one example?
Yeah, yes.
So, we all have certain weaknesses, right? And this is the beautiful thing about being a convert, because converts, we know our weaknesses, right? We know places that, I can't go there anymore. We're very suspicious of ourselves in certain environments. Certain words in America we get good feelings about and we don't even think about. I'll give you one, spirituality. Is that always good? Spirituality, that's a good term?
I mean, yeah.
Good term? What if my spirituality is worshiping trees? It's still cool?
No.
Spirituality, good word? It's a good word?
It depends on what is.
Is it always a good word? No. Okay, college, good word? Good word?
No. It depends on which college.
Oh, college is good, right? But is a good word. But spirituality, good word? Good word. Now, 2021, we better use some nuance to these words.
Has to be qualified.
Because not every college is good for your child. Academically, if you have a 2.0, you don't need to apply to Stanford. We agree? If you have a 1.8, Rhodes is not looking for you. Now, if you're struggling with Farda Ain, Rhodes is not looking for you. You understand? You know what I mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
If you're struggling with basic Islam, you don't need to go to a class with an expert in atheism who is in a dominant position where you're trying to get a passing grade. That's a position of weakness. You know what I mean by that?
I'm not sure if everyone understands where Brother
know-
Malik is going with this. Different colleges have different environments and different cultures, right? I personally know, I mean, I have 27 nephews and nieces, most of whom either went through it or they're going through it.
Right.
And there's a huge difference when the whole family makes a decision together. You know where your child is applying to. You've been to the school. You visited the school. You checked it out. You visited different campuses. And then collectively, the family made a decision. I'm personally against my child going out of state or out of, being out of, I think local colleges should do. Right, local colleges and universities should do. You should keep them local, especially in their undergrad period. Now, for their graduate school, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help them. Hopefully by then they're ready to deal with it. But I think it's very, very critical. But what Brother Malik is saying is very important when it comes to students who are at the age of choosing a college or going. different colleges or different universities, different campuses have different cultures.
Yeah.
And I personally know people who went to certain, especially extremely liberal colleges or campuses. The chance there is a huge, chance that they're going to lose their Islam. I mean, let's not, fool ourselves. I just came from California, right? And I ran into multiple people that grew up in the Quran programs, grew up in the masjid, grew up attending Islamic studies classes and courses, and going to youth camps. They went to some of the most liberal schools, and they lost their Islam. They lost even, to a point, they lost even their ethics and their morals. So there's a huge risk, right? And that's why we have to be very selective. So I do agree with you that not every college is the right one for that particular child of yours. So this is something that we really need to take into consideration. This is where they get challenged the most. And this is what I mean by bubble, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the bubble, one of my teachers one time said, he said, people, so my kids were homeschooled. My kids are homeschooled. You can't get a smaller bubble than homeschooling, right? And one of our teachers said once, he said, people say like homeschool kids aren't very socialized. He said, but what kind of socialization are you looking for? Like, bubbles aren't bad. Who told you, like, what's right with the bubble? I don't ask, even my own students, I tell them, I don't ask what's wrong with something. I ask what's right with it.
Nice.
When you get to a certain level, you stop asking what's wrong with something. You ask what's right with it. So when I meet people and they say, like, Muslims don't smoke weed, I said, what's right with smoking weed? What's right about cheating on your wife, man? What's right about having kids out of wedlock? If you can't give me something right about it,
then that's wrong.
Then I don't want to do it, right? So what's right with having bubbles? I'll tell you, Dr. Cornel West said, I am who I am because somebody loved me. Now he's reached the height of academia. Do we have kids in here who say, this bubble loves me? No, I go beyond love. This bubble likes me. Because we say we love each other for the sake of law all the time. Do I like you?
So you're saying that there is nothing wrong with having, raising our children in bubbles, so long it's a loving bubble.
A loving and liking bubble.
So a bubble, okay.
Right? Because guess what? The reason I started off with about Islam starting off, you have people in this community who can be cultural guides to America. I could show you this restaurant is good, this restaurant isn't good. I decided to become Muslim. I was raised in this place. The benefit of Islam is that you have all of these different experiences. If you create a bubble where people like each other, they'll share their experiences with each other. Salman al-Farsi, right? He wasn't Arab. But he comes into a bubble of love and where people like each other. They share that with me. Yeah.
No, before you, Dr. Ibrahim. تفضل. أخونا. Yes. Oh, you're good? Okay. Was your concern addressed? I mean, remember, this is a candid conversation. We're supposed to be having an open conversation. It's not a lecture. It's not right and wrong. Yes.
All probably what I can say as a response is that we also, I do agree to some degree with what you say regarding that not all colleges are good for our students.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But I think, and I agree with you as well, is that we should focus more on the bringing up of our children so that they're better prepared. That's all.
Okay.
Mission.
We have a professor at Rose College. Go ahead.
Oh.
Having been in a bubble is a good thing at the start, but
By the way,
Can I say something to that, if you don't mind?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so do anybody know the richest community in America? The wealthiest community in the United States of America? Community, not individual. I know Bezos got all of our money off the pandemic, right? Anybody know the richest community?
Fairfax, Virginia.
Who?
I don't know. Fair.
Any guesses? Shots in the dark?
Jacksonville, Florida.
No. Jackson, maybe. Religious community is the Amish. They're the richest community in America. You thinking, man, horse and buggies?
Yeah. You can't.
So let me give you some.
You can't have more bubble than that.
Yeah, you can't be more bubble than that, right?
Yeah.
Now, the Amish. So they have a couple things. They sued Schroeder. I think it was Schroeder versus Wisconsin, so that their kids didn't have to go to high school. So they only go up to 8th grade. And their reasoning was, they said, if our kids go to high school, it's bad for our ecosystem of our community, because we need our young people to give back. And if they do 4 more extended years, then it throws off our ecosystem. Because once they get out of 8th grade, they come back and teach, right? But then they also have this thing called Rumspringer. And Rumspringer is when they turn 16, they just let them go. And if I'm not mistaken, I know Sheikh Google's in the room, so I think it's 2 years. I may be wrong. What is, okay, go out. If you want to do dunya, go ahead. You know how many percent return? Something like 90% come back to the bubble.
90%
It's over 90%.
of the Amish community.
They go back to the bubble. What I'm saying is, Malcolm X one time was giving a speech, and he was telling.
Do you think we have that kind of? If our children would leave, what's the percentage of them that would come back within the community? So. Huh? No, I'm not saying leave. I mean, let's say all of our kids just go. I mean, obviously, to be honest with you, they're leaving, but we're just not seeing. They're leaving in large numbers. We're not seeing it. They're leaving the community. They don't identify.
They don't leave Tawheed. I think that's what you're saying.
Well,
And most people don't leave Tawheed, but they may leave the community.
Yeah, but
But
they're
that's a
leaving the
fact.
community. They
I
don't
get
want to
what you're
associate
saying.
with the Muslim community,
Yeah.
at least culturally. We're going to come back to that, inshallah, maybe at a later date, inshallah ta'ala.
Okay,
But
so
I want to go back to that culture,
all right.
ask him a question about Rhodes College.
Oh,
From his experience.
who's a professor? Okay, so Rhodes is a bubble. Right? Rhodes is a bubble. It's a beautiful campus with a gate around it. That's a bubble. Right? It's a bubble. Who, me or Rhodes?
You are saying bubble. When you're saying bubble for everybody, so what you're saying is that one size fits everybody. It doesn't fit everybody.
All right, can I address that?
I think you're comparing Rhodes to, let's say, UCLA.
No, what I'm saying is, what's right with bubbles? We just don't think of other places as bubbles. We only think of religious places as bubbles, and it's bad. A bubble is bad. It's not like spirituality.
No, I was saying that. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying there are challenges that come with raising our children within a particular bubble, right? If they're not ready to get out of it and deal with whatever they're facing, then they're going to have a hard time. That was the whole, yeah.
I'll give you an example. My kids, when they were growing up, next in the field, he was in charge of the youth. He did a very good job.
Who?
The first semester, when my son came back from college,
Yeah.
we were talking
Alhamdulillah.
How old is your son?
18.
Right now.
No, right now he's in 32.
Okay, it's a different generation.
No,
Mashallah.
I think that's fair though.
No. Because I personally think that we did a decent job. We did a decent job with the older generation. With the I think we did a decent job. The challenge that I'm having, or that I see many families are having, is now with the 16, the 14, the 15, the 16, the 17, the 18. This particular.
Why do you think that is?
There are a lot of things, in my opinion. I think social media and communication devices are a huge game changer, right? Because I mean, I would love to hear from Samir as well.
I would say
Samir is from that generation. From that generation. My issue right now is like I think the changes were so rapid. I don't think we fully understand what is happening to our youth. And again, I'm talking about the younger youth. I'm not talking.
Okay.
We don't understand what is happening to them, how whatever they're exposed to are affecting them, how our parenting style is affecting them. Right?
So I was gonna mention that.
I mean, imagine like a 12 or 13-year-old, demanding a cell phone. I can't remember. I can't understand this. Like I can't remember, right? Like I was probably 19 or 20 when I had my own cell phone, and I had to hide it from my dad. It's my own. I bought it. I was like 20, 21. It wasn't even a cell phone. It was, I think, a pager. So I had to hide it because I had no business owning a pager. Like my dad would look at me and say, "Why do you need a pager? You're not a doctor." Why do you need a pager? But I wanted to have a pager because it was cool. And I spend like whatever, $30 a month or something for that. I wanted to have a pager because it was cool at the time. And I would hide it from my father. Because my father will question the rationality, of having a pager for an 18 or a 19 or a 12, or a 21-year-old who is not a medical professional, right? But now we have 10, 11, 12-year-old kids that want the latest, iPhone, and they demand that, and we have parents providing this, not realizing that we're putting a very possibly spiritually or intellectually or mentally lethal device in the hands of our youth.
Go
Yes.
ahead, sis.
Yes.
I just want to share this experience.
Yes.
I work for download operator, hire people, oriented people. When they come for the orientation, I saw their names. Lots of them have their name like Khadija, whatever, Muhammad something. But they're no longer Muslim.
They don't identify as Muslims.
It was so sad. I asked him, do you know the meaning of your name? Something like that, You know your name, what does your name come from? They have no clue.
Okay.
So that's really saddened me. And I need advice how I'm as a parent to protect their, iman, It's really challenging.
Do we have any high schoolers or college students? Show of hand. High schoolers, college or high school? College, obviously. Do you mind if I ask you? This is a candid, Inshallah, is he safe? He can. Let me ask you a question. Which college do you go to? University of Memphis. Okay. Now, how many Muslim kids do you know in your own circle?
My own circle?
Yeah,
Several,
a lot. How many of them identify as Muslims?
Alhamdulillah, almost all of them. Like,
All of them.
but, almost all of them outwardly,
Okay.
apologetically.
Okay. So identify as Muslims,
Right.
and they're okay. They're okay. How many of them practice Islam? Of the ones that identify as Muslims, how many of them really are practice it? Oh, they're calling you now. They're like, hey, don't. We don't want number. We don't want names or anything. Just number.
No, good amount. Conservative estimate, 80%.
Oh, you're saying 80% of them actually. Let's say how many. Let me give you a specific. How many of them pray Jum'ah? Of the ones that.
Almost all the males I know.
You see, this is why I moved to Memphis, by the way.
We have the first
Right. One of the reasons I want to understand, I'm not saying that it's very bad. I'm telling you, I'm coming from California. Is this live? This event is live. Californians, I love you. You know.
Don't ever come back.
But there's a
right?
reason why I came. People ask me why. You know, there's a reason why I chose to come to. There's a huge difference. There is a huge cultural difference. You know, 80%. You're telling me that 80% of those who identify as Muslims actually do pray Jum'ah. Yeah, I understand. It's based on your own observation. That's great.
He has good friends.
That's good news.
Alhamdulillah. No, it's great.
You know,
It's great.
that's good news for someone who comes from areas that have campuses that may have, you know, hundreds of Muslim students. Maybe 10 of them come for Salah.
Yeah.
We're talking about the plight of our youth,
But
high school and college.
can I go
Yeah.
back to something she said?
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
With the sister right here.
no, Ray, the sister, Mr. Williams, who said about the students, the people, young people who come with
But
Muslim
thank you for
names.
that information.
So some of this is that people, somebody often, there's intergenerational Islam is very difficult for converts. So they'll give their kids Muslim names, but the Islam won't go to the next generation. The other thing is, when you talk about parenting, Dr. Leonard Sachs wrote a book called The Collapse of Parenting. And he says parenting in America has just collapsed. That people aren't parenting anymore. We don't even know what parenting looks like now. And if you're a teacher, you know this. Because you can go, when I was born, when I was in school, my father didn't ask me a couple questions. He didn't ask me what I thought about something. He never asked me my opinion if I got in trouble in school. He never asked my side of the story. Never. It just never crossed his mind to ask me, well, tell me what happened. No, the school said this happened.
That's it.
That's my father had haqqa yaqeen. Right? Whatever that person said, that's what happened. You're going to get it. Right? Now, it's the total opposite. Muslim kids are not. I've taught in public school and private school. Parenting has collapsed. And when you have a child demanding a phone, look, we used to go to Burger King, and my father literally, I never had the assumption my father would buy me anything when we were in the drive-thru. He used to drive through. I knew he was hungry. He would order himself something. I want a Whopper. And I literally would just sit there, and I would think for like 10 seconds, I wonder if he's going to ask me if I want something. And he would look at me and say, boy, you want something? I never made the assumption my parents had to do something for me. The Prophet ﷺ said, one of the signs of the hour is that the slave girl will give birth to her master, right? Are we living in that time? And if we are, how do we address that? We shouldn't become fearful. We should say, none of us wants to be the subject of a hadith like that, right? We don't want to be a parent who's being pushed around by a child we're feeding. You want to be pushed around by a child you're feeding? And if that's the case, we need to say, man, maybe I need to upgrade my parenting. And then that's the job of the religious community. And this is why I talk about mission at the beginning. Do we have a mission of having intergenerational Islam? Is that everybody's mission? Do you want your grandkids to be Muslim?
Yes, inshallah.
Do you? I mean, are we serious about that? Because my wife's a convert. As a convert, our whole lives, every decision we've made has been trying to ensure intergenerational Islam.
Allah.
Somebody one of your ancestors took Shahada and they made the same decisions I make with hopes that their lineage would be Muslim. I tell your kids that. Do you want to be the person who looks at that person on the day of judgment and say, I just didn't really feel like practicing? And that person may be thinking, man, I got kicked out of my village. Like I lost everything I had for this message. You want to look at that person and tell them, like, yeah, I was kind of on TikTok. I didn't want to go to class. I just want to be on TikTok. And then they think like, man, somebody went through, like, oh, it has to be mission-based. The Prophet ﷺ was on a mission. He was on a mission. So it wasn't like happenstance or like maybe. So when I say about going to a particular college, is that part of the mission? Is you going to this college part of our mission of you holding on to La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah?
Yes.
If not, maybe you need to go to the University of Memphis. Because I'm not being funny. I'm being serious. Maybe that's just a better location for you.
So before we get it, sister, go ahead.
So my question is, we're talking about bubbles, we're talking about family, and they say that it takes a village to raise a child. So, I think part of the reason parenting has been affected is because I feel that, for us, a lot of us, we're living by ourselves in Memphis, so either we have, families out of town or out of the country. So parenting used to be so different that, the whole family was raising children, right? So
Yeah.
you're learning values from different family members, and, it's just more diverse. So
Yeah.
do you think that also is, a big challenge for, parents like ourselves who are trying to, of course, make ends meet, and then, also wanting our kids to, practice Islam, away from, just that family bubble,
Yeah.
family.
Our Arab, my mom lives in Dearborn, Michigan, highest per capita of Arabs outside of the Middle East. Arabs have a beautiful saying, pick your neighbor, then pick your house. Pick your neighbor, then pick your house. We do the exact opposite. We pick a house, then we don't even know who our neighbor is. Literally, like, you don't know, it could be Jack the Ripper. Like, man, nice house. This house has a nice kitchen and bathroom.
Now, Brother Malik, now it's getting really tough, to find it. As soon as you find a house, it doesn't matter where. You just go jump on it.
Now it's becoming, you're just trying to find a house, right, that you can actually buy. I'm saying intergenerational. Arabs have been in Dearborn over 100 years. When Henry Ford brought them there, and they decided to live in Dearborn. Pick your neighbor, then pick your house. Some wisdoms apply no matter where you are on the planet. Yes, people are. We're living more alone. We're more connected, but we're more alone.
Okay.
Right? We're more connected, more alone. Here's a great book reference. It's called Johann Hardy. We did this at Midtown. We've been over this book, Lost Connections. It's about why depression and anxiety has been increased. If you ever have time, it's an excellent book, Lost Connections. It'll explain that. That and Dr. Leonard Sachs' Collapse of Parenting, would really, I think, help with that.
Inshallah, we'll have to carry on with this conversation, inshallah ta'ala, in a month. But before we conclude, inshallah, I want to see if, show of hand, if you like these kind of programs, if our community is ready to have these kind of conversations. It's going to get more intense. Today it's very, casual. If it gets more structured, it's going to get very intense, and it may become uncomfortable. But we need to really be agitated and get uncomfortable sometimes in order for us to make very important realization, right? So the seating is going to be different. So show of hand, how many people are in favor of these kind of events, programs? One. Okay, it looks like overwhelming majority. The second thing that I wanted to do is I personally want to understand. Remember, I moved to the community within 6 months, or a little bit more than 6 months. The whole COVID era started, right? So I didn't really get a chance to get a feel of get to know the community. I think maybe Ramadan was our first opportunity to really interact and get to know one another. So I feel challenged when it comes to understanding my beloved Memphis community, right? I've been here for 2 years. I thought this would have been accomplished at least within the first year. So there's a lot that I don't know, and inshallah ta'ala, my intention is to get to know the community better. Inshallah, feel free to reach out, book an appointment, go out for coffee, call me, inshallah ta'ala. But one thing that I want to do is, and I wonder if Sheikh Anwar and Brother Samir can help me, inshallah. Samir and Anwar. Samir. Sheikh Anwar is here, our youth pastor. If you can help me, inshallah, is really survey our youth, right? High schoolers in college, do a survey and have as many of them participate. Just again, show of hand of those who are present here. Would you feel comfortable? Again, you know, your name is not going to be there, just some basic information about your age, gender, where you go, what grade you're in. And we may ask you some questions that we want you to answer honestly, just for us to have a better understanding as to where our youth are. Would you feel comfortable participating in these kind of surveys? Inshallah. Anyone else? No? There are some people who didn't raise their hands? Okay, good. All right. Specifically targeting, youth. I'm targeting the youth. Again, it's for us to understand, to better understand where you're at. We don't know who's taking the survey, but inshallah ta'ala, that's coming out, inshallah azza wa jal. We will continue to have these conversations. Our next conversation should be, Samir? Our next conversation is last Friday of July, right? Actually, not the last Friday of July, but rather the fourth Friday of July, which is the 24th, inshallah. So about a month from today, right? The 24th, inshallah. The 24th of July, inshallah ta'ala. We're going to have another chai talk, inshallah. And perhaps maybe in that we're going to talk about some challenges of parenting, inshallah, hoping to have Sheikh Yasir join us, inshallah, for that program. Jazakumullah khairan for participating. Thank you for those who donated or those who provided the chai. Maybe next time we can have non-dairy chai next time for those who are lactose intolerant. Jazakumullah khairan for also the cookies and refreshment. Samir and his team for setting up this. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this community. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve and protect our youth and our children and our parents. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.